Most engraver cutters work with vector drawing programs. Generally, that means you'll be working with Adobe Illustrator or the freeware program Inkscape. For the purposes of this video, we'll work with Illustrator, so let's start by opening that program and creating a new file. Illustrator will ask you to dimension your new file and select various characteristics for it. Opinions differ about the best way to do this, but here's what I like to do. First, I always work in inches. It's common to work in millimeters, but the software from my engraver likes inches, so I find it easiest to go with flow in that regard. Do what works for you. Also, I always set the dimensions of my artboard in Illustrator to match the dimensions of the piece of stock I'm cutting from. This makes placement of my cutting art easier and more consistent, especially when I'm working with a piece of stock that already has material removed from it. It's rare for a job to use an entire piece of stock. So here I'll set my units to inches and my document size to 12 by 12. Color mode really doesn't matter, so leave it at CMYK. There are some advanced operations that rely on color, but we won't be talking about those today. Once all your settings are in place, click OK and Illustrator will set up your new document. For this video, we're going to create a small wooden business card. This is partly for ease of design and partly because we can demonstrate both engraving and cutting. The standard business card is 2 inches by 3.5 inches, so begin by drawing a 2 by 3.5 box. Of course, if you're of a creative bent, you can modify this to suit your preferences. Change the dimensions, give it rounded corners, whatever floats your boat. Inside the box, place your standard business card text. My name is Brian Little. I'm an instructional designer, and I'd like people to know my Twitter handle, my Instagram handle, and my email address, so I'll include all that information. Adjust the typeface, size, and position to your liking. Since I work for Davidson College, I'd also like to include a copy of our Wildcat logo. We already have this as a vector file, so I'll open it, copy the image, and paste it into my existing file, then resize it to fit the space on the card. Note that because it's vector art, I don't have to worry with the resolution. Notice also that I'm working with black and white images. You can engrave grayscale or color images, and the engraver will interpret the variable image density as a varying strength value for the laser. So, for example, on my engraver, solid black will engrave deeply, medium gray will engrave to a medium depth, and light gray will engrave only shallowly. But learning to engrave grayscale or color images is a tutorial all by itself. For now, we'll stick with plain black and white. Once the elements are in place, we're ready to begin finalizing the image. First, let's tell the laser which lines to cut. In this case, I want to cut only the outline of the card, so I'm going to set the line weight of the bounding box of the card to 0.001 inches, 0.072 points since Illustrator insists on dimensioning lines and points. My particular cutter is set up to cut any line with a weight of 0.001 inches or less. Next, I want to engrave all the text and the Wildcat, so I need to rasterize those elements. To rasterize something means to change it from vector art to raster art, and to do this, I'll select each element, and then from the Object menu, I'll choose Rasterize. Illustrator asks for resolution, and because my laser engraver is capable of a maximum of 500 dots per inch, or DPI, that's what I'll use. Since we're starting from vector art, I can really choose any resolution, but anything beyond the capability of the engraver is just wasted data, and so it's wasted space on my hard drive. But just as I want to avoid rasterizing at too high a resolution, I also want to avoid a resolution that's too low. Without sufficient resolution data, raster images become jagged and ugly. With that, my art's complete. So we'll save it and set up the laser.